And we're live again. Hi, guys. It's Southern Belle Atheism, and my name's Amber, and I have a really special guest with me today. Her name is Valerie Baber. She's a sex therapist, a model, an essayist, a writer, sex educator, and an actress. And she has an overwhelming amount of education, and her personal story is one of courage, it's one of inspiration, and I just want a lot of women, especially women in the South, to know her story, because in the South, we come from conservative backgrounds. And when I heard her story, I guess a year ago, another interview, she inspired me. So I looked her up online and went to her website, valeriebaber.com, and was very impressed. And I just want to say thank you so much. This means a lot that you're visiting with us. And I really admire your personal story and journey. It's to me, I think that everyone needs to hear it, especially girls who come from conservative backgrounds. And I love that you have a really sex positive message and that you really own your sexuality. And I guess just take it away, tell everyone your bio.
Wow. Well, I'm flattered. Thank you so much for that great introduction. And it's really cool to hear that I've inspired you. I would love to reach out to more women and be a positive influence for them and a support system for them. Unfortunately, with my history, it's not always easy to win the respect of women. We tend to be a little bit more judgmental and afraid of sexuality. So that's difficult, but I'm glad to know that that wasn't the case with you.
Not at all. I was
Wonderful.
amazed. I was just amazed. I applaud you. I applaud
Thank
you.
you. Wow. Okay. Well, I appreciate it. And I mean, where should I begin? Should I tell the story of how it all started? How this is relevant to um, my being Southern, or where would
Sure.
you? Where would you?
Are you from the South or the Midwest?
Well, my dad was in the military. I was born in Virginia, and then we moved to California. Then we moved to Oklahoma. I spent 15 terribly long years in Oklahoma before then moving to Arizona, California, New York, England, France, New Jersey, and now I'm back in LA. So I'm a nomad. I'm a little bit of everything, but 15 years in Oklahoma, I can't
Yeah.
deny that there's a bit of South there.
Yeah, there is. There
Hmm.
is. And I think it's interesting because you talked about you came from a really Christian Southern background and
Hmm.
you sort of escaped that. And I feel like that, well, I did too. I came from a Catholic conservative background here in the South, Tennessee, but mostly when I was in my, I guess, middle school through a little bit of high school through in Alabama. And how did that conservative background, mine was very harsh, how did that influence everything that you've been through basically?
Hmm. I grew up as in a non-denominational Christian household. Many of my family are Baptist, but my parents decided to go non-denominational, but it was still pretty intense. I was there at church every Sunday morning and night, and Wednesday. I went to vacation Bible school. My dad was in the 700 Club. I don't know if all the
Hmm.
listeners know what that is, but it's an evangelist sort of cult, a religious cult. And he was military on top of that. So there was a very strict upbringing, and just it never felt comfortable to me.
Hmm.
I didn't. It's not that I didn't understand it. I just had a really difficult time accepting the stories that they were telling me and the what seemed to be the lack of logic behind them. This faith-based, having faith is a good thing, but when you have faith in the wrong things, it can be damaging.
Yeah.
It's important to question why we do the things we do, and I feel that the Christian group that I was surrounded with, anyway, they just weren't asking the right questions. So when my parents got divorced in 1992, they both suddenly stopped being religious, and it was a godsend to me. I'm like, oh, good, I don't have to go to church anymore, and
Yeah.
it just felt a lot more natural. And I still went to church with some friends from time to time. I explored different religions, and they're nice people, and I think it's good to understand where everybody else is coming from. But
Mhm.
nothing felt right to me. So now I just have this perspective that God is within us.
Mhm.
And I believe in the golden rule: treat other
Mhm.
people the way you want to be treated, and know what's right and wrong within. If it feels like if whatever you're contemplating doing feels like something that you're not going to be able to live with, then don't do it. But
Mhm.
what's right and wrong for everybody is different, and I definitely think that it's for me, it's wrong to judge other people for making different decisions.
Mhm.
So I would call myself more spiritual now.
Yeah, and I like the word spiritual too. We've talked about sort of reclaiming that, what the
Hmm.
word really means. And I guess, it took me a while to sort of really come through all the stuff, I guess, that I've experienced. I went, it's interesting, your story, I appreciate it so much because in a way, I wish I'd had the courage to go the path you did, but I didn't. And I
Okay.
ended up falling into domestic violence.
Oh,
And and this is why I think your message is so important of women owning their sexuality. And
right.
but I had a couple of girlfriends who were strippers, and I saw them work their way out
Hmm.
of a conservative place or a bad relationship with that. And they did it in the smart way. They did it in the smart sense, the way that you
Hmm.
were talking about in the last interview that I saw with you. And the fact that you set off from home at a very early age, what was it, 18, and you just kind of took control. So if you don't mind sharing a little bit of that.
Sure. So I was 19 when I moved to Los Angeles on my own, and I never wanted to be a dancer. I think very few girls grow up wanting to go into the adult industry, but I had no support from my family. I didn't know anyone in California. I had at 19 an incomplete education, and the only real work training that I had was as a front desk girl at a tanning salon. So my options for making money were incredibly limited, but I also felt that going back to Oklahoma was not an option. So I got a job as an underage hostess at a nightclub and restaurant. I was making $7 an hour, and at the time I thought this is great money, but it didn't take very long for me to realize that that is not great money and it doesn't pay the bills. And so I was talking to a bartender that worked at this club about my financial burdens and the stress, and how I didn't know what I was going to do to support myself. And he said, well, if you're, actually told him, I wish Playboy would hire me, because my father,
Oh,
as strict, Christian as he was, he still had a collection of Playboy. so,
wow.
so I remember seeing those magazines and thinking the girls are beautiful. Like, I wish I could work for Playboy. He said, well, I don't know anyone at Playboy. I can't get you in, but if you don't have a problem with nudity, I have a friend who owns a club and dancers make a lot of money.
Mm,
And I was so desperate. I was like, oh, okay, I'll do what it takes. And that's when I started dancing. And I danced until I was 27. And in many ways, it was liberating. I learned a lot about myself and sexuality, my sexuality, other people's sexuality, what actually happens in clubs. I
mm,
think there are a lot of misconceptions. Relationships, what men are looking for, what they miss with their wives, what
mm.
couples are seeking to spice up
Yeah.
their lives. So I learned a lot, and I'm thankful for that. It gave me a lot of free time to pursue creative activities. It gave me a lot of cash, um, and I became stronger and more confident in my own sexuality. But it wasn't all great. There were a lot of deeply disturbing moments, and I generally didn't like dancing. It was really tough, but I just didn't know what else to do. So there's some good and bad in everything, and
Mhm.
you know, thinking about thinking about the negative aspects of it isn't going to put me in a better place. Thinking of what
Mhm.
good came from it is, and I can help other people with that. So that's what I choose to focus on.
And that's really cool. I like the fact that you've gotten so much education. You even studied in England,
Hmm.
and that and you wrote a book too, and you're working on your PhD currently, aren't you?
I'm debating whether I want to make that commitment. I love the idea of it, but
Mhm.
it could be 3 to 5 more years,
That's true.
and it's a lot of money,
Mhm.
and and I need to find the right program. If I'm
Mhm.
going to do this, then I really need to find the right program, and that's not easy.
It's not.
So
It's not.
so I've been researching. I've also thought maybe I just need to get a second master's in marriage and family counseling. So I'm taking my time this time
Mhm.
around to do some thorough research on the research that I might be might be doing, if I were to get into a PhD. I'm drawn to it, and
Yeah.
it's in my head a lot. So I wouldn't be surprised if it happens within the next year, if I start sending out applications. But right now, it hasn't. But I would like to, at the moment, what the issues that I'm thinking a lot about and that I'd like to further explore are alternative relationships
Mhm.
and how we can bring more happiness into our intimate lives by having relationships, because we all crave companionship.
Mhm.
So having that, but doing it in a way that we aren't accustomed to,
Yes.
because what we're accustomed to is so often failed.
Mhm.
So it's time for change, and what change would that be, and how would we go about it? So that's something that I would want to explore. I would also like to explore women and sex work. The more women I
Yes.
meet, this has brought some women to me. Being a coach and writing and being out with my own story has brought other women to me that have similar stories, and I feel like there's this great need for us to support each other and understand each other, and bring enlightenment to people about why we go into this and what
Mhm.
the psychological effects are. And I'm sure that there have already been some studies, but I certainly never found. I don't feel like it's taken too seriously, and I never knew of a support group when I was in the industry and feeling isolated and
Mhm. Yeah.
having panic attacks and not being able to function like normal people do in groups, because I
Mhm.
was so afraid that people would ask me questions about who I am and what I do for a living, and I'd say the wrong thing and be chastised and ostracized. So
Yeah, and there needs to be like a positive term for all of it, whether it's, whatever it is, whether it's dancing or being a companion. And I like your word being a companion because I think that's appropriate and I think that's good. And I don't
thank you.
think that, I think we need to have a more, I'll say, Northern European attitude when it comes to prostitution and sex work and porn and dancing, erotic dancing. I just don't think that the environment we have these two extremes in America. We
Hmm.
have this Puritan extreme, and then we have almost anything goes where sex is okay as long as it's free.
Right.
And that bothers
Right.
me. The hypocrisy of that bothers me so much. It's like, why is it better because it's free?
Well, it favors men if it's
Mhm.
free. We're supposed to, as women, we're supposed to do it because we're in love, or because we're drunk. That's okay. If we're really trashed and we make bad decisions,
Mhm.
that's okay, as long as men benefit from it. But if we take ownership of our sexuality and say, hey, I'm not in love with you, but I'm okay with being with you, and I'm giving a little bit to you, and I'd like something in return.
Mhm.
That's illegal. Women actually go to prison for that, and it's just
Exactly.
wild. It's
And
unfortunate.
yeah, and I think that really irks me the most about the whole culture of sex is that sharp dichotomy in our culture.
Hmm.
The fact that it's okay, and you had a tweet a few weeks ago. It's okay as long as it's on film, and but
Right.
in private, it's not okay.
So porn is legal, but I
Hmm.
mean, what porn is? They're people, consenting adults, just like
Hmm.
escorts, consenting adults having sex for money.
Hmm.
And that's what escorting might be. I mean, for me, when I was working as a companion for the Emperor's Club, it wasn't always sex. Sometimes
Hmm.
it really was just an emotional connection, or
Hmm.
a sensual, non-sexual connection. Um, but that is essentially, what escorting could be. But because it's not done on film, and because escorts are less exploited, for some reason that's illegal and looked down on as well. I can't figure it out.
And I wonder if, I've always thought the real reason it's looked down upon and it is illegal is because it's like you said, it puts the woman in charge
Hmm.
of your body, your sexuality, of of everything, your finances. I mean, that's what it all
Hmm.
hinges on. And to
Right.
me, that's the big reason for keeping it illegal. If the whole, and I've heard the whole like tax argument, well, make it an independent contractor
Sure.
process, just like strippers. They go and they get an independent contractor license and they're supposed to
Hmm.
pay taxes and all that jazz. So
Hmm.
that knocks that out. They can't say it's tax evasion, making cash under the table or anything like that. So I just think all the arguments are very weak.
Mm-hmm.
for against making escort services or whatnot, sex work legal. I think all the arguments against it is they are very, very weak. And I think that they are steeped in the religion that's still sort of haunting this country, that we got from the Puritans, that we brought over from the old world, that, we birthed here. Mormons are very conservative
Mm-hmm.
out west. And of course, I come from a Catholic background. So even though we have separation of church and state, I don't really see a true social separation of church and state. And like you said, it really bothers me that women are most of the time more judgmental about other
Mm-hmm.
women than the men are even. And that is
Yes.
very disturbing.
That it is. It is very disturbing. And until recently, I've had primarily male friends. I might have had one or two women in my life, but even they wouldn't be very close. Things have changed now. I'm further away from the industry, have other things to talk about. I'm proud and confident of myself, and I'm older. And I think as we get older, it's easier to
Yeah.
make female friends. But it was very difficult to bond with women because I was just so scared of how they would judge me, even though certainly they were probably doing their own things. They were
Oh yeah.
probably going and sleeping with more men than I was, but
Yeah.
because it was free, because they couldn't pay their rent after it, or because it was their boyfriend giving them jewelry
Hmm.
instead of a guy that they weren't committed to.
Exactly.
That would be okay. But yeah, I think a lot of people approach the subject of prostitution with fear. That's what makes it so that they don't understand what it is really. A lot of people think that all women who go into the adult industry are trafficked, or they suffer
Mhm.
deep psychological bruises. And certainly there is trafficking
Mhm.
and there is dark psychology, but that doesn't mean that everybody is a victim. A lot of people are taking control of their lives and putting it back on track.
Yeah,
Not everybody was born with a silver spoon. A lot of women come from
exactly.
really difficult backgrounds, and this truly is the best way that
Hmm.
that that they can adjust that. I was with a girlfriend last night who was a dancer for I think 5 years. She lived in her car when she was a child. Her family was homeless, and she started dancing. And she met her husband, who would be her husband there. He helped her develop a career. She stopped dancing when she married him. He helped her develop a career, and now she's no longer with him, but she's making $1 million a year.
Wow,
Um,
that's cool.
and and that's because she chose to dance. She met him there, and it
Hmm.
propelled all these great. She's a wonderful, brilliant, successful, confident woman because of this kind of questionable, difficult thing that she went through. And so why would we? I can't imagine her not having that opportunity. Where would she be? Maybe she would still be in a car.
Hmm.
Maybe she would be in a marriage with somebody who couldn't support her or who was abusive to her.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what's worse?
And that's a good point. We people always want to point the finger,
Hmm.
and that's a good question. What's worse? Because the path that I went, I'll tell you what happened to me. And I don't really talk about this, but the first time I married, I was 18 years old, and I married to escape a bad situation that was kind of going on in my life around that time, because everything
Hmm.
was kind of going crazy, and there had been the scandal at the Catholic prep high school that I was going to, where kids had been molested, and
Imagine that. That never
I
happens.
know. I was called in as a witness, and I left Alabama and went back to Tennessee, didn't start college early. After my sophomore year, after I started college, what should have been my junior year of high school.
Yeah.
And the first guy that I really ever truly officially dated, I ended up marrying, because
Okay.
I just didn't have anything else to anchor. And it turned out
Hmm.
to be very, very bad. But I was smart enough to be on birth control, not have a kid.
Good for you.
And I was smart enough to get out of it a year or so later. But
Hmm.
I wasn't smart enough to break the cycle till I was out in my late 20s of
Hmm.
bad relationships, because I kept on looking at myself thinking, what's wrong? And I didn't realize that it wasn't so much I was a weak person. It was that users and abusers will always look for people. They know how to pick up on your body language. They know how to pick up on the cues that you've been hurt before. even though you're educated, even though you've earned a degree, they still know, they just know how to read you, and they're looking for givers. Takers always look for givers. And I think when you're a really empathic person and you have this nurturing complex that you just want to help everybody or save everybody, you really have to watch out for those types. And I didn't learn that until later. So I feel like if I had more of a sense of self-preservation and I'd gone a different path like you did and been a little bit braver, I think that I would have ended up a lot better off. Now I'm okay now. I have a great husband and a great life, but I just admire women, because it's funny, because the women that I've been really good friends with, a couple of them are a lot like you. They have very similar stories.
Okay.
And it always intrigued me, like the differences, how close their stories were, but how different that they actually are. Even though in the end we all ended up okay, but I think that I would have been better off earlier if I had have broken that cycle and taken my power with my sexuality, like you talk about.
So it was just a lack of bravery at the time that kept you from doing it, or were there any other obstacles for you?
Well, a lot of it was, even though I left Catholicism behind, it had been ingrained in me that sex was evil. And I didn't consciously think it was evil, but I felt dirty. Like every part of my body felt dirty. Like I couldn't hardly stand sex. And I felt really dirty. Now I didn't really so much project that onto other people. I'm lucky that I didn't fall into that whole, a lot of people, when they feel like that, they kind of become a really conservative person and they stay that way. Luckily, it always pertained to me. Like I turned that inward for the most part. And it took me years to get over that and going through all that bad stuff. And I thought, well, maybe, I even dated women in college occasionally. I thought, well, maybe I'm just really bisexual or something. And that's where I got more of the nurturing thing, was from women, so much more than I think from the guys that I dated. So that's a little bit of what happened to me. So it's very intriguing when I see people like you, that I'm just amazed that you could own your sexuality, because I still, sometimes think back on that and think, gosh, if I had just understood it, or someone like you had been there to help someone like me, even though I wasn't in the industry, the sex industry, I was still very much had a dark story, like some girls may in the sex industry. I was coming from a place of abuse, and I was trying to make my way out of that into the world. So, and it would have helped me if I'd ran into someone like you, I think.
I felt the same way. Sex was a shameful thing that's what I was taught when I was growing up. You're supposed to save your virginity until marriage, because that's the ultimate gift. But it's just, when I was out on my own and I had to survive, it's like, hey, God's not paying the rent. And these puritanical values aren't paying the rent. I have to pay the rent. And the only thing that I have to do that with are these, this part of me that's actually very natural. So I'm going to do what I have to do. And it felt really good. And the more I did it, the more it made sense that everything that I had been brainwashed with before was fear and control from the people that brainwashed me. And that wasn't the first time that I thought, this whole virginity thing is weird. I was actually 15 when I lost my virginity. You know what? And I don't even like that term. When I chose to share my first experience with my boyfriend, she's like, I have this craving. I don't know when I'm going to get married, or if I'm ever going to get married. I know that I'm going to be with this guy for a long time, and I'm not going to let the fear of this king in the sky casting me down to hell for being human, the human that he created me to be. I'm not going to let that really stand in the way of enjoying this body and this one life that I have. So that's when I sort of started to break free of that. And then when I had to it's the final release of chains.
That's amazing that you were able to do that, because I wasn't. It took me until 30 something. So that's pretty cool.
And how does it feel? Awesome.
It does feel a lot better. It feels good not to feel guilty. Not to always feel guilty. And you don't realize that you carry that subconsciously, like unconsciously in you. And that's probably the most harmful thing, is that I realized, like, I wasted a decade of my life, like my 20s. It didn't dawn on me that I shouldn't feel this way till I was 30 years old. And So it kind of feels like I wasted that decade in a way.
But the 30s are a great decade for women. I
They
think
are, that's true.
if there are any 20 somethings or younger watching this and going, oh my God, I don't want to be 30, it's the end of life. It's absolutely not true. I think older is better. You just learn so much about yourself and you
Mhm.
gain so much. There's a whole different kind of beauty in this decade. So
I agree. I think my 30s are turning out to be what my 20s should have been.
yes.
Definitely.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So how do we bring women together? Like, how do we stop women from judging each other and being more accepting and talking freely about sex and all this jazz?
That's there's a lot of work to be done. I think a lot of things need to happen, and I don't really have the answer, but I do know that the more we talk about it, the more we use social media to have respectful conversations about it and critically analyze the subject from many different perspectives and let everybody have their time to say what they need to say, and just not give up on breaking it down and trying to figure out, you know, what it's about and why we have the feelings about it that we have. And as long as we just keep putting it out there, then changes will start to see changes. You know, people will start thinking differently. And if we think differently, then we'll act differently. I'd love to see some groups put together.
Mhm.
I don't really know how to do that. But there should be a better support system, you know, formally or
Yeah.
informally. We do need to love each other and understand that just because, you know, somebody else is making decisions that we wouldn't make, it doesn't make them a bad person. Maybe they're coming from a different place, and just be supportive.
Yeah, and
So
I think that's the number one thing is really just like you said, just an unconditional sense of support.
mhm,
And and I asked you this question on Twitter. What do you think about the whole third? Because there's this whole thing with third wave feminism and second wave.
mhm.
Second wave is I call myself more of a classical feminist, and I've talked about that on here. And I think we're both kind of a feminist, a type of feminist. But third wave seems to be really sex negative. And I guess the term intersectional was first formed in 1989 in an academic paper, some feminist scholar. And in the 90s, third wave sort of took off. And I saw it in graduate school in the mid 2000s. It completely took over feminism, intersectionalism, third wave. And they seem to have like a really negative view of just sex in general. And I think it's really damaging. I think all this, even to the point where they will side, as you can see what's going on in the news and all that, they'll side with Islamicists and say that the burqa protects women from the male gaze. They'll say, make bizarre claims like that, like bizarre fallacious claims like that, or they'll say something like the mayor of Cologne telling women that they needed to go and get a code of conduct instead of having a vetting process before they take in people who refugees and making sure that opportunists don't come in as well. And I see third wave as being full of a lot of victim blaming. And I just, what are your thoughts on all that?
Feminism is such an overwhelming and frightening word for me because there's just so much to it. There's so many different branches of feminism,
Mhm.
and I think everybody has a slightly different definition. It's really hard to pin it down. Um, so I don't really know how to manage it, or and I might be wrong in my understanding of what things are. I thought that intersectionalism was just feminists of different races coming together, saying that
Mhm.
feminism isn't about the middle class white women. It's
That's
about,
what I thought too. Yeah.
but it's not. It's
Yeah.
shaming and oh, okay. Well, see, there's an example of how much I know about feminism. So, well, that's strange. I can't imagine wearing a burqa. I mean, it does bother me that you know, some men don't respect women, that it's hard to walk down the street just, you know, wearing this
Mhm.
without somebody, you know, doing something that's unwanted. But I'm willing to accept an unwanted,
Mhm.
you know, cat call or comment every now and then
Yeah.
for the freedom of looking like this. For the most part, I think American men, or at least men in Los Angeles, can handle it. You know,
Yeah.
maybe they'll have thoughts, but they aren't, and I'm not getting raped. I think I'm,
Yeah,
I,
yeah,
yeah, they can handle it. So, no, what do you think about the shaming? It seems a little extreme. I can't imagine that people
mhm,
would want to go in reverse and control women more
yeah,
to
yeah,
protect them.
and that's what I think surprised me too, especially when I hit graduate school, when, I was called all these names and accused of being like patriarchal because I wore makeup and because
Hmm.
I dressed like we dress, pretty much how we want to
Right.
dress. And they just assumed because I was married then to someone else, they just assumed that, I was really conservative and never asked, and all these assumptions were made. And I've seen a lot of shaming and victim blaming. Also, it seemed like anyone that came from someone like our story, like I came from a conservative background, and so did you, and we both, through different ways, worked ourselves out of it. Instead of wanting to hear that or to befriend us, they just wanted to condemn us.
Right.
I was actually, this was an undergrad. I took a class with a friend of mine who was a stripper, and it was a women's literature class, and we were just the oddballs. I mean, they didn't want us in the class. They didn't want us in the women's days minor. They just wanted us gone. And
Interesting.
and it was just, I mean, I'd never felt so much hate. I mean, I just felt all this hate, and like you said, intersectionalism was supposed to be about everyone coming together regardless of class. I thought
Hmm.
initially. I thought, okay, well that's good to do away with the class factor. And here you had two people that definitely had been marginalized because of class, and we were treated just crappy. So that was sort of my experience with the whole third wave in both undergraduate and graduate school, and also online. I had to take the word feminist out of my tagline on both my Twitter accounts
What
because
happened?
I started attracting like these really weird third wave feminists,
Uh-huh.
and just everything I said was bad. Like if they don't like atheism, um, they're really against like gender language, what they call gender studies language. Like they don't like feminine women. I don't really understand a lot of it, honestly, because I was never a gender studies student.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
they just it's just a lot of weird stuff. And also, I've been on Facebook, and when you go on like a Planned Parent site or a support site for women who've had breast cancer, my mom's a breast cancer survivor, you'll get trolled by people who are either wanting to transition into a woman, and they'll call you transphobic because you refer to your uterus as a female sex organ, or you know we were talking about fibroid tumors one time on Planned Parenthood, and some transgender came in and called us, my friends and I called us transphobic because we referred to a uterus, our uteruses, as female sex organs. Like
Well,
that's how
it
insane it is.
is. It is.
I know. I'm like, that is basic science. Everybody knows this. Chromosomes are a thing. We all know this. We
Uh-huh.
all had this. I hope we all had science. But
Yeah.
that's the kind of stuff that I'm seeing. It's kind of scares me. That I don't feel like there's really a place for a lot of women like us anymore. And I kind of want to reclaim that whole movement. And like you said, we do need support groups.
Hmm. Is there any other way that you would propose women coming together? Have you seen anything in your area? Have you, or in other people's areas that have any websites that we could go to build these
You know,
communities?
I really haven't, but we really need to. That's kind of what I was trying to do here, honestly. I was really
Uh-huh.
trying to just have like an open cafe. And I mean, I know that you're always going to attract trolls, and it's going to be hard to build up, people. But I thought, well, if maybe if I make it about atheism and something like that, and then my Twitter friends had encouraged me to do it because they thought it was really interesting that a woman from the South would want to talk about atheism.
Atheism. Hmm.
Yeah. So I thought, well, maybe this will be a start, but it's really hard because honestly, like the girls who were going to be contributing bells, they hardly want to come on because they're scared. They're scared
Oh
about
no.
losing their jobs. Like Clarissa doesn't want to lose her job. She works at a hospital, but then she says she's not really an atheist anyway. So I don't know if she changed her mind on that or what. And then my other friend, Anne, she has children, so she has to worry about children.
Hmm.
And so they just can't put themselves out there. And then I lost another Belle who was going to come on, and I think she saw me on Twitter. She saw some people like dislike some tweets and say some nasty things. So, but that happens. So she didn't want to be the target of that sort of attention, but that's going to happen, unfortunately. Even if you have a completely private account, you're still going to get some people friend requesting that you don't want friend requesting you. It's just, unfortunately, that's just the internet. Even though there are people like us that use it appropriately, there's always going to be someone to use it inappropriately.
I would say just get out of there. Get out of Alabama so you can be the person you are, and not have to worry about your neighbors throwing rocks in your window or losing jobs for not believing in the God that I'm sure is prevalent there. So, but I know that's not realistic, and we shouldn't have to move homes because our community is judging us for not being a follower. So that's a struggle, but then struggles make us stronger. They give us more motivation and passion to help other people deal with their struggles. So I guess just look at that situation as a what do you call it? A gift undercover. What's the, I'm not thinking of it.
Some serendipity, something good could come of it, eventually, maybe. I mean, I made great friends on Twitter.
There you go. Yes.
Yeah, I found my best friend on Twitter, and 2 years ago, and she's French. She's in France, and I flew over to actually meet her in person last March.
Wow.
So that was pretty amazing. And get this, we share the same birthday. We share the same birthday. We have black cats. We're both literature majors. It's just crazy how much we have in common. So
she must have really impressed you if you got on a plane and you went from Alabama to France to meet a stranger on Twitter. She must have been amazing. So what's your birthday?
November 21st.
Okay.
And actually, she just turned 21 this past year, so I'm friends with her entire family now.
Okay.
And I just turned 38. I turned 38, and she turned 31 this past November 21st. So she's kind of like my hypothetical daughter if I ever had a daughter, because I've always wanted a daughter. And so, and she was tweeting out. She found me on Twitter and tweeted, "I want to make a friend with a literature teacher from Alabama, from the South, because I love Alabama." She liked that show, Heart of Dixie.
Okay.
And so it kind of just went from there. And then we started emailing each other or private messaging each other on Facebook. And we would like write each other these long letters about what we were doing. And she would talk to me about her frustrations in school and guides. And I would talk to her about everything that was going on at the college I was teaching at the time, but I was so frustrated. And we just sort of became just really close. It's like we knew each other better than I know people here in person, because we were able to write like that thanks to the internet. And my sister was living in Germany, so I flew to Germany, then took another plane to Ireland, because she was at school at University of Cork in Ireland. So I actually met her in Ireland, even though she's Irish, which is kind of interesting. So I actually flew into Ireland, a country I never really thought I would want to visit. Flew into that a day after St. Patrick's Day. The entire country was hungover. Everyone was in a bad mood. And I had to take a bus from Dublin, from the airport, all the way to Cork. And I thought we were all going to die, because that bus driver, I swear, was drunk. He was cussing at people and yelling at people, and like, we're not getting off of this alive. And finally, 3 hours later, we pull into Cork, and she was right there. And it was like the most amazing moment, one of the most amazing moments of my life, that and graduating college, and just meeting Faustine. So that's how beautiful the internet can be.
Yes, it can do a lot of negative things, but it can do a lot of positive things too. I think it's amazing that it's been able to bring so many different people from around the world together. This sounds like such a fun adventure. I'm so proud of you for doing that. You are brave. You're clearly brave now.
I am now. I would have done that 10 years ago. I would not have flown to Europe by myself and navigated countries I could, I wouldn't have done that 10 years ago. But I'm like, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Did you study along the way in these different countries that you were visiting, feminism and atheism there, or was it really just fun time with your new friends?
It was really just I went and I saw my sister, and she was in Burghausen, which is on the kind of close to Austria. So I saw Germany and Austria, and then I went to Ireland, and then came back to Germany. So I really didn't. I just sort of visited with her when I was in Ireland, and then just hung out with my sister and went around. I saw sites. I didn't, I talked to a lot of the natives in Ireland, and Ireland was really interesting because my view of it was not very good when I I have to say, and I have a lot of Irish friends online now. I'm really sorry to say this, but it was, they have a lot of issues in Ireland, like abortion's not legal. Birth control became legal in the 1990s. And I've met people over there who say it's not as bad as what I saw, as what it seemed. But I saw like a lot of teenage pregnancies. It reminded me, Mississippi just lost their abortion clinic. And Alabama still, we still have clinics and stuff like that. But it reminded me of Mississippi. And I hate to say that. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
But
Reminded me of Mississippi.
Yeah. Yeah, that was my
Okay.
opinion.
All
But
right.
I love Germany and Austria. Those are, and I've been to the UK before, so I loved all those countries.
I like
But
Germany. I haven't been to Austria, but Germany is nice. Europe is a great place to go. I think Americans should get out more and go see Europe,
yeah,
and not just for a few days, but actually take
yes.
time to live and travel there. There's a lot to learn from our cousins and
Oh, I
and
agree.
neighbors.
Yeah, I agree. But yeah, that was my time in Ireland. So, what are you doing now? As you're I guess I thought you were working on your PhD. What projects are you working on now currently?
Well, I am growing my coaching business. So on valeriebaber.com, there is a way to book coaching sessions. I do that by email, by Skype, or in person.
Mhm.
I also offer wing woman sessions, date coaching. So if anybody is a little bit timid, they don't know how to they have trouble finding their confidence, asking someone out or going to dinner with someone or flirting with someone, I can coach people with that. And that's been a lot of fun and really interesting. I've had some very nice clients with such fascinating stories and backgrounds. So I enjoy that. I keep, I try to stay on top of news, sex in the news. There's so much that comes out.
Mhm.
So I do sometimes have difficulty filtering through it, but I set my Google alerts and I'm constantly reading to see what's out there and what's interesting to people. I am working. I had to set a couple of books aside because I just had so much.
Mhm.
I was just like, I can't look
Yeah,
at these words another day or I'll scream. So
I
um,
understand.
I had my memoir up. I've decided that I don't like the cover. I didn't like the title. It was a little bit here and there. So I'd like to give it an edit, a new title, a new cover,
Mhm.
and then publish it again. But I just need some time away from it before I do that.
Yeah, yeah. Writing's tough. It is.
It's so rewarding.
Mhm.
And I love it. I've always done it. I'll always do it no matter what else I have going on in my life.
Mhm.
Even if I don't do it professionally, I'll do it for myself. But it takes a lot of energy and
Mhm.
persistence. And you read the same. I don't think most people really understand the editing process. You can't just go
Yeah,
and there
exactly.
you go. There's a lot of going over it and over it
Mhm.
and over it and over it. And it's never just right.
Yeah, it's so tedious.
Uh-huh.
It's like
Uh-huh.
doing dishes all the time.
All the time. Yeah. And it's great because you have clean dishes and people are excited to eat off them, but you wear your hands down. The manicure never lasts. Um, right. So writing and studying and coaching and looking into PhD courses. Um, and there are things that I keep my mind busy thinking about how I like to deliver the same messages that I'm delivering now in different creative methods, using different
Mhm.
creative methods. So I keep telling myself that I'm going to learn photography and take strong erotic art with a message.
See,
And
you'd be good at that because your pictures on your website are beautiful and your
thank you.
writing as well too. I really like the way you write. So everyone go check out our website. And I really like the things that you're talking about and you're writing about. And also I want to ask you about your views on monogamy because I was talking to
Yeah.
another friend about this too, your views on
Uh-huh.
monogamy.
I touched on that a little bit with my Young Turks interview. I actually wrote my thesis about that as well. Monogamy, I really love the idea of it. I love the idea of lifelong monogamy. I think it's romantic and beautiful. I just don't think it actually happens. I think there are a few people that can be in a relationship when they're 19 or 20 and be with that one person,
Mhm.
for the rest of their lives. But they're a minority.
Mhm.
I really just don't think that we're wired to do it. There's not one person who was going to fulfill all of our needs emotionally and mentally and physically from now until the rest of time. So I love the idea, and I think nothing is impossible. But I also think that a lot of people would find a lot more happiness if they explored things like open relationships, consensual non-monogamy, alternative relationships where, jealousy isn't a part of it, where insecurities don't come into the picture. And if they are insecure about something, then they can talk about it and save that relationship, rather than thinking that their partner, if they were attracted to someone or even had some sort of physical engagement with someone, that's the end of the relationship and that's the ultimate disrespect. Because it's not necessarily the ultimate disrespect. It's not necessarily disrespectful at all. So I would like to encourage people who have only known monogamy to maybe think about what else might work for them, and why monogamy is so important to them in the first place. And if there's any way that they could, get that, just live a different life. So what do you think about it?
Well, I don't know. I had this friend, I call him Oxford Dave, and he's a friend of ours. He's a physicist at Oxford. You may know him. His name is David Robert Grimes.
No.
Okay. Well, he's quite he's quite a different person. He's very interesting. And he sort of doesn't think that it's natural. In fact, he says all the people that he personally knows that are not monogamous at all. They all have open relationships. But I don't know. I don't think it's black or white. I think there's black and there's white and there's a lot of gray, like with a lot of things. I kind of think that way. I personally feel secure in monogamy. And I just kind of always have. And I think that's just my security issues. I freely admit, I'm not the most adventurous person. I go to bed early and I get up early. So do
I. It's okay.
So people ever since I was much younger, people were kidding me, telling me that you're like a grandma, you drive like a grandma, you go to bed early like a grandma. So maybe that's my problem. But I've always felt safe in monogamy, but I've seen the dark side, I've told you, and I've kind of, very talked about here, is that I've seen how monogamy can be very bad and it can go very wrong. And that is a problem. And I think when it's good, and when it's not, it's not. But I kind of liked what I heard you say once, that you're monogamish, you like a little bit of wiggle room.
Yes.
Because I think a lot of people would probably fit in that area. And a lot of people would be on the other side where they wouldn't want to be tied down at all. That would just be the worst thing in the world for them to ever, have to be attached. And I can see that. I mean, I'm not like that, but I can let them go and do their thing. So I guess I don't really have any strict sort of hangups, I guess, against anything, but I think for me, I think I just find it really secure, and maybe I'm in a minority. I don't know.
You might be, and that's okay. If it works for you, then great. Do you think that your husband shares your views?
I think he does, because he is such a Vulcan. I married a physicist, and a lot of physicists they're just always in the brain. They're always in the mind, not the body, always in the mind. And and they tend to be very focused on, okay. And this will illustrate it perfectly. I got him a subscription to Playboy.
Okay.
Our first year we were together, and I thought, because he was from a conservative background and all this stuff. And I'm like, you know what? And I was too. And I always thought that I was a little bit of a prude because of my personal, I've been insecure, and I have done some modeling and stuff, but it's always a stretch to get myself out of those parameters that I'm in just naturally because of childhood, I guess.
Vodka helps.
But, yeah, so and he let it lapse. He didn't really look at it that much. And then, he did occasionally, but, and then he'd never been to a strip club. So for the first birthday,
you took him to a strip club?
Yes, I did. I swear I did. And because I was because he was from a family, his sister's very jealous. We don't have anything really to do with his family. His sister's just a very jealous person. And so he was always around really possessive people. And I wanted him to know that you could still love and be faithful to somebody and not be afraid of losing them, or that I wasn't going to get jealous or angry. And it was funny because at the strip club for that birthday, his first birthday we were together, he wouldn't go up and put $1 in. And so I had to get some dollars and go up and put $1 in myself and show him how to do that. And it was just really funny. It was really sweet. But I mean, I'm married to a really, really sweet guy. He's really sweet, and he's a physicist. He's 6'2", 6'3", and just a big Vulcan. That's the only way I know how to describe him. But he's very nice.
If a woman is searching for monogamy, would you suggest she look for a physicist? And if so, where should she find one? Because I don't meet many of them.
Well, I would. The funny thing is, I found Brian. We found each other on chemistry.com.
Chemistry, okay.
Yeah, it was like some sort of branch of Match.com, and we met back in 2009. So yeah, so we that's where we found each other, and our first date we just talked for 8 hours, and we've been together since. So,
that's a great first date.
Yeah. So we've been, and I have to say, like, I hit my sexual peak like when I hit 30. I was there, and I was about ready to get over all that shit. And so I hit my sexual peak, and I don't think he knew how to handle it. But I didn't know how to handle it either. So that was quite interesting. But you know,
so you did not bring God into the bedroom with you anymore at all.
No, and actually, God was never really in the bedroom. I don't think. Maybe a little bit in my first marriage because it was a Christian. It was a Christian I guess I married when I was 18. But no, my husband's always been an atheist. He was just, I guess physicists, they're just born with that. You know, they're just born with that questioning sense where they just, if it doesn't make sense, it doesn't equate, then oh well. So
what does your family think about your husband then? It seems that they have such opposing views. How did they accept him?
Well, the weird thing is that after a lot of things happened to me and my sister, my parents are almost like different people. Like they've completely changed. I mean, they haven't changed their personal views. They still have their Catholicism and their political views and all that, but they've become very accepting. Like today, they're wonderful parents. I don't have anything to complain about. And it's not that they were horrible parents when I was a child. It's just that the views that they held interfered a little bit. And I think the consequences was very unhealthy, especially for me, because it was very restrictive and you know, and it shouldn't have been. But they've apologized my mom has apologized for a lot. And so they're actually, they really love Brian, and they're really supportive of Brian. So in fact, the weird thing is it's almost like I have a different set of parents. And so everything has been healed for the most part, I think. And that's very unusual. I understand that's very unusual, but I think a lot of it has to do with that. I'm just a very, I can be a very strong-willed person, but I can be very strong-willed and very, very empathic and nurturing at the same time.
Okay.
Like I can just, you know, I don't know how to describe it. I know how to be diplomatic when I have to be.
There you go. Good for you. So do you think that as people mature, they become more educated, they go through their own experiences, they learn a little bit more about the realities of life, they would be more inclined to let go of religion and puritanical views?
I don't know, because some people get more religious, and so that's a strange thing. Some people do seem to do that, and then some people just completely, you know, let go of it. So and I think it depends on if they keep evolving as an individual, or if they just stop growing. I think it depends on a lot of that. So because some people just sort of stagnate, they just stay there and they never evolve and they're always the same. And I think those may be the people that are never, no matter what they see happen to their loved ones or their children or the lessons they learn, I don't think they're ever going to change. And I think those tend to be more your black and white people. So, and I've noticed the older I get, like I definitely think there's black and white, but I think there's still a lot of gray. And I think I went through periods where I just thought it was black and white when I was much younger. And then in college, I may have thought it was all gray. And now I think there's an entire spectrum.
There's a rainbow.
Yeah.
Life is rainbow.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. I agree. So, but, and as far as like what other sort of, the question I get asked when monogamy comes up is, well, what would happen to the family structure? Like what would happen to kids and all that? And I don't know, what do you think about
Well,
all that?
I think that there are a whole lot of kids that come from divorced parents, you know, and broken homes, and they make their way in the world just fine. I actually feel that it would be better for, low battery, let me see. I think that it would be better for children. I might need to plug this in. You're traveling with me.
Okay.
To to oop, where are you going? Where am I taking you? I think it would be better for, oh, it just came out of the wall. I might lose you. I'll see how much further I can go. So better for kids to be raised in a home where their parents are honest with them from the beginning. Hey, you know, there are you have multiple mothers and fathers, or hey, you have one mother and father, but we live apart from each other. And if that becomes normal for a kid from the very beginning, then I don't see how it could negatively impact them. Because what negatively impacts kids is trauma. You know, being told one thing and then seeing another, or being raised one way and then dropped into an entirely different lifestyle. It's confusing, it's sudden, it's shocking. That's what's going to cause pain for kids. So it's not so much a lifestyle. It's just the lie that they're given. So just start with honesty, whatever your relationship style is, or your lifestyle, just start with honesty. If there are kids in the house, and they'll be fine.
Yeah, and I tend to agree with that too. As long as the parents are healthy and they work it out and they get along, usually I don't think there's one right way to raise kids. I do think that, you know, the mom needs to be comfortable and in sync. And one reason that I think, you know, I'm very much into the whole Bernie like democratic socialism thing is because I really think it gives you that safety net, gives women, you know, especially young mothers with babies, that safety net to allow them to have support and to be able not to be beholden to traditions or a lifestyle that they may have been forced into that they may not have chosen if they had other means. So that's what I really like about Northern Europe.
Yes. I like Sanders. He's a good guy. I'm still sort of between Sanders and Clinton.
Yeah, I guess the whole what made me choose Sanders is he seems like everyone's grandfather, but I really like his universal health care and the fact that he really is for maternity and family leave, and he makes a lot of sense. And plus I'm a delegate for the state, so I'm a delegate for Bernie.
All right. I could probably learn from you. You probably know a bit more about politics than I do. So
maybe
I have to quiz you at some point. So my phone, the battery's getting low, and I don't have a cord long enough here to take it where I need to.
And I agree. We've been talking for about an hour, so I guess we need to wrap up. What are your favorite authors and your passions, your hobbies, and what inspires you? All that jazz.
What inspires me? I'm really motivated by psychology and sociology and people, culture, communications, how we all interact with each other, and trying to figure out how we can make our interactions and our relationships better. So I'm an amateur social psychologist, and very interested in learning more about that. I'm inspired by creativity, art, and music, and mine is a very creative world, and I love that people can tell a story without telling a story, to move you and bring you back to a place, or encourage you to think about a new place through visuals or audio, or the way words come together. I don't know if I have a favorite author. I have been listening to some really interesting audiobooks lately. Christopher Ryan, Sex at Dawn, is just, there's so much information in there, and it explains a lot of things. So if you're interested in learning about sexuality and sexual anthropology, Sex at Dawn is a great piece to read. What else? Hobbies. I have a camera sitting here. I need to learn how to use it.
Yes, you do.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be cool.
Mm-hmm.
And wine, I know you like martinis, but what's your wine choice if you have to drink wine?
I'm a white wine girl. I'll drink red wine, but I just typically go for a heavier white, and I like Montrachet or
Montrachet.
Montrachet, depending on
Well,
depending on where you're coming from.
well, give out your
Okay.
website and your Twitter handle, and tell all the girls where to find you, because I really seriously think that you'd make a great therapist, sex therapist,
Thank
family
you.
therapist, whatever.
Mm-hmm. Thanks. So it's Valerie Baber, Valerie Baber. You can find me with my first and last name anywhere. So Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, you name it. And the website is valeriebaber.com. If you want to come and talk to me about your relationship, the problems that you're having with it, if you don't trust someone, if you're thinking about going into the sex industry, if you're recovering from an abusive relationship, I've experienced that too. Having some sexual insecurities, I'd love to talk to you. I'd love to have more women come to me. It's so important for females
Yes.
to support each other. So there you go. There you have it.
And you know what? I want to say thank you, because I feel like this has been a therapy session for me. So there you
Oh,
go. There
really?
you go, guys. Check her out. And thank you so much for coming on and for being a role model and for being yourself, because you're a lovely person inside and out. And thank you.
So are you. I've had so much fun. I hope to do this again with you soon.
Yeah, me
Okay.
too. Thank you again.
Bye.
Bye, guys. Bye, everybody.